Welcome to True Echo, where every story echoes a deeper truth. Today's powerful tale is one of deception, revelation, and the courage to rebuild an empire from the bottom up. Charlotte Benson wasn't just any CEO, she was the Charlotte Benson. Dubbed the Queen of Silicon Valley, she shattered every glass ceiling the tech world stacked above her. As the head of Bright Vision, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate dominating everything from AI to cloud security, Charlotte's life seemed like a triumph: sleek boardrooms, industry awards, magazine covers. But beneath that glittering success, something had gone cold. It started with an email. The quarterly employee satisfaction report flashed red. Not just below average, rock bottom. Phrases like, ghost walking the halls, unseen, favoritism, and culture of fear flooded the anonymous feedback section. Charlotte's heart sank. She had built Bright Vision on values like fairness and innovation. How had things gone so wrong without her noticing? Her executive team offered excuses: growing pains, post-pandemic fatigue, the usual HR spin. But Charlotte wasn't convinced. Numbers could lie. Charts could spin a narrative. But the voices behind those comments? They were telling the real story. And so, she did what no one at her level had ever done. She decided to vanish. No press release. No grand gesture. Just a new name, Charlie Baker. A green janitor's uniform. A forged resume stating she was a recently divorced woman from Georgia, hoping for a fresh start. With the help of her closest confidants, Marcus and Jessica, she erased Charlotte Benson from the building she once ruled and entered the world of the invisible. Her first morning was brutal. The service elevator groaned as it descended into Bright Vision's basement. The janitorial office smelled of bleach and burnt coffee. Doris, the gruff head of cleaning, gave her a stack of procedures and a warning: don't talk too much. Don't ask questions. Nobody here lasts more than 3 months. Charlotte, now Charlie, walked hallways she once designed as a visionary architect, only now, no one met her eyes. Executives brushed past her. Staff ignored her. Even the security guard who used to beam when she entered barely glanced at her ID. It was like becoming a ghost in her own home. The turning point came when she dropped a mop outside the executive elevator. Linda Parker, her COO, someone Charlotte had once mentored and admired, glared down at her. Do you even know how to clean? If you screw this up, you're gone. That icy dismissal landed like a slap. Charlotte realized in that moment, Linda wasn't just cold. She had become the very rod at the center of Bright Vision's leadership. But that was just the beginning. As Charlie, Charlotte heard it all: managers mocking older employees, laughing at accents, dismissing veterans like Raj Patel because they weren't trendy or young enough. At lunch, she overheard Linda and others plotting to cut dead weight from departments, not because of performance, but because they didn't match the brand's youthful image. In the IT department, she met Henry Walker, a kind-hearted black engineer who treated everyone, even her, with respect. He picked up her dropped rag and introduced himself with a smile: whether you're cleaning or coding, you're part of the team. That moment nearly broke her. As Charlie Baker, she learned more about Bright Vision's soul than she ever had from her corner office. And what she saw was devastating. This wasn't the innovative, inclusive company she founded. It was something darker, slick on the surface, toxic underneath. But she wasn't done. Not yet. The days that followed were some of the hardest in Charlotte Benson's life. Every morning, she slipped on her green janitor's uniform, tucked her now mousy hair beneath a cap, and took the service elevator to the lowest rung of the company she had built from nothing. And every day, she walked invisible among the empire she thought she understood. The deeper she ventured, the more truths she uncovered. In the cafeteria, she heard young managers whisper about a black accountant named Angela Brown: quiet, efficient, devoted. A single mother who always worked late and skipped team bonding events to care for her son. The consensus? She'd never be promoted. Not enough charisma. Doesn't blend. Never mind that she corrected more mistakes than anyone else. In the tech labs, older engineers like Raj Patel and Donna Matthews were quietly iced out. Brilliant minds. Decades of experience. But now labeled as too old school, too off-brand, too hard to sell in a demo meeting. No one said it outright. But Charlotte heard the code words clearly. They don't fit anymore. And then there was Terrence. One night, Charlotte walked into the maintenance room to find Terrence Carter, a 50-something African-American mechanic with grease on his sleeves and tears streaming down his face. "I'm gonna lose my house," he whispered between sobs. "Wife's sick. HR gave me a pamphlet. Said try alone. 10 years of service. Not a raise. Not a bonus. Just a folded piece of paper and a pat on the back." Charlotte sat beside him, silent, her heart pounding with guilt. She had personally signed off on Bright Vision's financial wellness initiative, thinking it would help. Now she saw the truth, it was a lifeboat with no oars. But amidst the pain, there were flickers of light. Henry, the IT engineer, checked in on Charlie every day. "You good, my friend?" he'd ask with a grin. When someone left lunch behind, Henry wrapped it up and left it for the night crew. When a new intern panicked during a tech demo, Henry knelt beside her and whispered, "You've got this. Breathe." To the company's top brass, Henry was too emotional, not leadership material. To Charlotte, he was Bright Vision's last flickering flame. One afternoon, as she scrubbed the floor outside a marketing brainstorm, she heard her own name come up. "Charlotte Benson." "Please," a young executive scoffed. "She talks about diversity and heart, but has anyone actually seen her down here? It's all for show. We're the ones keeping this place alive." The irony nearly made her drop her mop. They had no idea she was right there, knees on tile, heart pounding in rage. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, her hands shaking as she scribbled notes onto napkins, invoices, scraps of paper. Employee names. Broken policies. Toxic quotes. Betrayals too quiet to ever make a spreadsheet. Daniel, her husband, sat across from her. His eyes, always steady, now flickered with worry. "You okay?" Charlotte didn't look up. "No. But I'm getting there." She didn't sleep. She couldn't. The lies, the cruelty, the silent suffering of the very people who had built Bright Vision, who had trusted her, were now burned into her memory. By week's end, her mission was no longer about observation. It was about revolution. It was time to tear it all down. And rebuild something worthy of the people who had kept it alive. By the start of her third week undercover, Charlotte Benson no longer flinched when someone brushed past her without a word. She no longer paused at the sound of her old title being spoken with disrespect in a meeting. She had become Charlie, another quiet fixture in the background, cart in hand, mop at the ready. But inside, a storm raged. One afternoon, as she was emptying trash cans on the third floor, she overheard two interns whispering about Henry Walker. "They say he'll never move up," one said. "Too soft. Always helping people instead of pushing his own stuff." Charlotte gritted her teeth. She had built a system that punished kindness and rewarded self-interest. Henry, who should have been a team leader, was stuck fixing wires while the likes of Brian Mitchell strutted through the halls in tailored suits, bulldozing his way through projects and people alike. Later that day, Charlotte entered the finance department. There, Angela Brown was working late, again. Angela was squinting at spreadsheets, cross-checking every decimal point with a laser focus that put everyone else to shame. She spoke softly on the phone to her son. "I'll be home soon, baby. I just have to finish this for the team." It hit Charlotte like a punch to the chest. This was leadership. This was devotion. And no one saw it. No one rewarded it. They dismissed her because she didn't go to bar nights or fake smile through office birthday cakes. Angela wasn't being ignored because of her lack of team spirit. She was being punished for not playing the game. Charlotte wanted to scream. Instead, she made a decision. That night, she returned to her modest apartment, the smell of bleach still clinging to her skin. She laid out all the notes she had gathered, stories of Donna, Raj, Angela, Henry, Terence, and realized they weren't just anecdotes. They were evidence. She wasn't going to write a memo. She wasn't going to hold a secret meeting. No, Charlotte was going to go public, shockingly public. On Monday morning, the entire company would hear the truth. Not from a PowerPoint deck. Not from a report. From her, Charlotte Benson, speaking as both the CEO and as the janitor who had lived among them. There was one last thing she needed to do. On Friday, before she clocked out, she approached Henry. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered, voice low, still in her Charlie persona. "Of course," Henry said, smiling. "What keeps you going? Why do you care when it feels like no one else does?" Henry's face grew thoughtful. "Because someone has to. I didn't grow up in places where people had power. But I remember the ones who saw me, who helped me without asking for anything back. I figured, if I can be that person for someone else, even for one day, then maybe I'm doing okay." Charlotte blinked away tears. This was the heart of Bright Vision. Not the brand. Not the boardroom. This. She knew what she had to do. Come Monday morning, the real Charlotte Benson would return. And this time, she wouldn't be coming with smiles or slogans. She'd be bringing the truth. Monday morning arrived like a wave of electricity crashing through the corridors of Bright Vision. An unexpected email had landed in every inbox by dawn. Subject: Mandatory company-wide meeting, 9 a.m. sharp. Location: Main auditorium. Attendance required. No exceptions. No agenda. No explanation. Just silence. Across floors and departments, confusion turned to murmurs. Was someone getting fired? A merger? A scandal? But none were prepared for what they were about to see. At exactly 9 a.m., the auditorium lights dimmed. Hundreds of employees, coders, engineers, marketers, cleaners, and top-level managers, buzzed with tension. Linda Parker sat near the front, arms crossed tightly, flanked by Brian Mitchell and Mark from marketing. Even they didn't know what was coming. Or so they thought. Then she walked in. Not in a designer blazer or high heels. Not with her usual entourage or PowerPoint slides. Charlotte Benson stepped onto the stage in plain clothes. No makeup. Her brown hair still cut in the practical janitor style. Her eyes, however, were sharper than ever, burning with a truth none of them were ready for. The room fell into a hush so deep, you could hear every breath. She stood before them, alone. "I know most of you expected a quarterly report," she began, her voice even. "Maybe another polished update about record profits, product launches, or media praise." A long pause. "But that's not why we're here." A few heads turned. Linda stiffened. Brian whispered something to Mark. They were starting to realize. Charlotte continued, her tone resolute. "For the past month, I have not been in the executive suite. I haven't signed any new contracts. I haven't even answered my phone." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the ID badge she had worn for weeks. Charlie Baker. Janitorial staff. A gasp rippled across the room. "Yes," she said, holding up the badge. "That was me." Chairs creaked as people turned to each other. A wave of realization swept over the room. Charlie the janitor, the woman scrubbing cafeteria tables, the one Brian brushed past, the one Linda yelled at, was Charlotte Benson. She nodded slowly. "I went undercover in my own company because I needed to know the truth. Not what the reports told me. Not what the executive summary said. I needed to see what bright vision had become through the eyes of those who are never heard. Linda's face went pale. Brian's jaw tensed. Charlotte's eyes swept across the audience. I listened. I scrubbed floors. I ate lunch alone. I watched people get passed over, mocked, excluded, because they weren't young enough, trendy enough, loud enough, or connected enough. I saw Henry Walker pick up a pen I dropped and treat me like a human being when no one else would. I saw Angela Brown, the best accountant we have, work until midnight without anyone thanking her. I saw Terrence Carter cry alone because he was about to lose his home and no one in HR even offered real help. The silence was deafening. Charlotte turned to Linda. And I saw something else. Her tone chilled the air. Linda Parker, please join me on stage. All eyes turned. Linda stood slowly, trembling. She walked to the stage with visible effort, her face drained of all its usual confidence. Charlotte faced her. Do you remember yelling at the janitor in the lobby? About the mop? Linda opened her mouth, but no words came. She stared at the floor. I was that janitor, Charlotte said. A wave of shocked murmurs erupted in the room. Charlotte didn't let it settle. I remember when I believed you were a symbol of fairness. Of strength. You inspired women across this company. Including me. She took a deep breath. But I heard you laughing as you talked about eliminating people like Raj Patel because of his accent. Mocking Donna for her age. Pushing Angela aside because she wasn't flashy enough. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I'm not doing this to destroy you, Charlotte continued, her voice softer now. I'm doing this because I can't ignore what we've become. And because if I don't take responsibility, real responsibility, then I don't deserve to lead this company. She turned to the audience. And that goes for all of us. Some employees bowed their heads. Others looked stunned. A few were already crying. Charlotte's voice trembled, just slightly, but she stood tall. I failed you, she said. Not just by looking away. But by creating a culture where kindness became weakness, and silence became the only way to survive. Her gaze swept the room again. But that ends today. The room remained still. Not a phone buzzed. Not a foot shuffled. It was as if every single person in Bright Vision had collectively stopped breathing. Charlotte let the silence stretch. Because this silence was the real beginning. The kind that follows an earthquake, right before the rebuilding starts. Her voice steadied. We talk about innovation. Disruption. Building the future. But what future are we building if we leave our best people in the shadows? What kind of company celebrates awards while letting someone like Terrence cry alone in a dark mechanical room? Charlotte's eyes flicked to the back of the auditorium. Terrence Carter sat frozen, stunned, but visibly moved. Henry, beside him, blinked hard, his hands clenched in his lap. Angela Brown wiped away tears. Donna and Raj sat in quiet disbelief, their names and pain now acknowledged in front of the entire company. Charlotte turned back to the crowd. I don't want Bright Vision to be the best company in the world anymore. I want it to be the best place to work, for everyone. And that doesn't start with numbers. It starts with people. She paused, then gestured toward the screen behind her. We're starting over. The screen lit up. Bold letters appeared. Bright Vision Cultural Reset, effective immediately. Gasps. Whispers. Charlotte held up her hand. Let me be clear. This isn't symbolic. This isn't a feel-good campaign. She tapped the screen, and bullet points appeared. Anonymous reporting system, a real one. Fully independent. If someone is harassed, mistreated, sidelined, or silenced, they'll have somewhere to go. And the people responsible, no matter their position, will be held accountable. Emergency Employee Assistance Fund, starting today, any employee experiencing a personal crisis, like Terrence, will have access to immediate support. No more pamphlets. Real help. Real dignity. Transparent Promotions Committee, all promotions will now go through an independent panel. No more secret nods. No more brand fit nonsense. Just talent. Performance. Integrity. Leadership retraining. She turned directly toward the front row. Every department head, VP, and executive, including me, will undergo mandatory training in ethics, empathy, and real leadership. You don't get to lead people until you value them. At that, Charlotte turned back to Linda. You've been removed as COO. A stunned silence rippled through the auditorium. Linda didn't argue. She nodded slowly, tears falling, and whispered, "I understand. But I'm not throwing you away," Charlotte added. "You're being reassigned to lead our new community outreach initiative. You'll work with people who've been pushed aside, like you once pushed others. If you're willing, you'll rebuild with us." Linda stepped off the stage in silence, no applause, no humiliation. Just a long, humbling walk toward redemption. Then Charlotte continued. "One last thing." She stepped forward and looked into the crowd. "Every week, I will meet with 10 randomly selected employees, janitors, engineers, interns, veterans, for coffee with the CEO. No filters. No agendas. You tell me what's real. And I'll listen. Personally." A pause. "This company will be human again." The auditorium erupted, not with polite clapping, but thunderous applause. It started from the back row where the cleaning staff sat, then surged forward like a wave. For the first time, employees weren't applauding a chart or a quarterly win. They were applauding truth. Charlotte stepped down from the stage, walking straight to Angela, then Henry, then Terrence. One by one, she shook their hands, hugged them, or placed a hand on their shoulder. Her team, not the top brass, not the influencers, her real team. Bright Vision's foundation had cracked wide open. And from those broken pieces, something new was beginning to grow. In the days that followed Charlotte's public reckoning, Bright Vision didn't just change, it transformed. The office buzz that once centered around product launches and stock prices shifted to something entirely new, hope. Conversations in the break rooms turned from gossip to gratitude. Meetings, once filled with forced smiles and shallow chatter, now pulsed with honest discussion. Charlotte stayed true to her word. On Wednesday morning, in a small conference room next to the HR wing, the very first coffee with the CEO session began. No executive assistants. No cameras. Just 10 employees seated around a circular table, with Charlotte sitting in the lowest chair. From janitors to interns to a senior software engineer who had almost quit the year before, each one was invited to speak. Charlotte listened, really listened, taking notes by hand, asking follow-up questions, and pausing to reflect on every story. One employee, Kim, a delivery logistics assistant, confessed she'd been afraid to speak up for years about a bullying supervisor. "I thought I'd lose my job," she said. "I never imagined you'd care." Charlotte looked her in the eye and replied, "You're the reason this company will survive." Outside that room, change wasn't just symbolic, it was tangible. Angela Brown, the steadfast accountant once overlooked, was promoted to lead the finance division. On her first day in the new role, she walked into the boardroom with her son's photo still on her desk. She didn't change her voice, her style, or her late-night schedule. She led like herself, and was respected for it. Henry Walker, the quiet IT hero, was named Bright Vision's first culture ambassador. His job? To help cultivate kindness, empathy, and teamwork across departments. He launched mentoring programs for interns and started a weekly newsletter featuring acts of unseen heroism, employees helping employees, no matter their role. As for Terrence Carter, he was brought to tears a second time, but this time, in gratitude. Bright Vision paid off the remainder of his wife's hospital debt through the newly formed Employee Emergency Assistance Fund. They also provided support for childcare, transportation, and even helped repair his roof. For the first time in years, Terence walked into work with his head held high and a genuine smile on his face. Charlotte made another bold move. Raj Patel and Donna Matthews, previously labeled as outdated, were tapped to lead Bright Vision's newest initiative, AI for Aging, a groundbreaking program designed to use artificial intelligence to help seniors navigate daily life. Their decades of experience, once mocked, became the cornerstone of a national pilot program that was already gaining attention from federal health agencies. In one powerful moment, Charlotte invited Raj to speak at a major tech conference on behalf of Bright Vision. He walked on stage to a standing ovation. The company was finally putting its money, and its mission, where its mouth was. But perhaps the most astonishing transformation came from someone nobody expected, Linda Parker. Stripped of her title but not her spirit, Linda threw herself into her new role with the charity wing. She coordinated outreach to underserved schools, started a program hiring disabled veterans into the operations department, and, more surprisingly, began leading weekly workshops on ethical leadership. At first, some employees scoffed. Was this a PR move? A punishment? But when Linda stood in front of a crowd and said, "I used to value efficiency over people. I silenced voices I didn't want to hear. I was wrong, and I'm rebuilding from the ground up," the room went quiet. Then, they applauded. Real growth had begun. And so had forgiveness. Across the company's social media and public relations channels, Bright Vision no longer boasted about quarterly gains or product specs. Instead, they shared employee stories, personal testimonials, and behind-the-scenes snapshots of staff volunteering, creating, and connecting. It was radical. It was real. And the market noticed. Client trust soared. Job applicants flooded HR with resumes. Articles hailed Bright Vision not just as a tech leader, but a model of corporate transformation. One headline read, "The company that fired its culture, then rebuilt it from the ground up." Charlotte read that article late one night, Daniel curled beside her, the city lights glowing beyond their window. She smiled, small but proud. Because she knew the work wasn't finished. But for the first time in a long time, she believed in the company she had once created. Not for its numbers. But for its people. 6 months after that unforgettable morning in the auditorium, Bright Vision was unrecognizable, in the best possible way. Gone were the stiff boardroom smiles and hollow celebrations. In their place, open doors, honest conversations, and a culture humming with real connection. The mission that once sounded like a slogan, respect. Listen. Innovate. Was now embedded in every hallway, etched not just on plaques but in people's hearts. Every Monday morning, instead of executives monopolizing the mic, meetings began with a 5-minute gratitude share. Employees recognized each other publicly, for staying late to help, for mentoring, for just being kind. Henry Walker's culture newsletter had become more popular than the company blog. Angela's finance reports were not only spotless but now came with insights that made senior leadership actually listen. Charlotte Benson no longer locked herself in the 40th floor glass suite. She rotated desks weekly, sometimes working beside interns, sometimes in the loading dock with logistics. The powerful CEO had become what she always wanted to be, a servant leader. And people followed her, not because they were paid to. Because they believed in her. One Friday afternoon, during the now-beloved Voices of Vision forum, Charlotte stood beside Raj Patel and Donna Matthews as they unveiled the company's new accessibility software, designed entirely by a multi-generational, multicultural team. Donna, once mocked for being out of touch, now fielded questions from reporters. Raj, once sidelined, led a live demo. The applause that followed wasn't just for the product. It was for them. For being seen. Finally. In the lobby, a new mural was installed, for stories tall. It wasn't the founders' portraits or sleek product renderings. It was a collage, Terence hugging his wife outside the hospital. Angela and her son at the ribbon cutting of the new Employee Resource Center. Henry handing a flower to an intern on her first day. Raj sketching code with a disabled veteran trainee. And in the center, a woman in a green janitor uniform, her back turned, mop in hand, with just one word under the image. Listen. On a quiet evening near year's end, Charlotte and her husband Daniel stood in the now bustling main lobby, watching a group of interns laugh beside a cafeteria worker. Maintenance crews and data scientists shared snacks. Nobody cared about titles. Only contribution. Daniel looked at her with a smirk. You look lighter. Charlotte nodded. For the first time, I am. Was it worth it? Charlotte didn't even hesitate. Every moment. Because the truth was this. She had once built a tower of power. But she only found real success after scrubbing its floors. And in doing so, she discovered that the soul of a company isn't found in spreadsheets, stock prices, or mission statements. It lives in the quiet dignity of the people who hold it up, day after day. People who just want to be seen. Heard. Valued. And now, finally, at Bright Vision, they were. Charlotte Benson's journey reminds us that leadership isn't about command, it's about connection. And that the loudest truths often come from the quietest corners. Let this story echo beyond Bright Vision. Ask yourself, who are we ignoring in our own lives, our own organizations? As Charlotte said, real change doesn't start with a memo. It starts with listening. If this story moved you, subscribe to True Echo for more powerful tales like this. Share your thoughts in the comments. Who is your Henry? Your Angela? Your Terrence? And most importantly, share this video. Because someone out there might need to hear it today.